Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, in the television audience. This is the August 26th meeting of the Revere City Council Zoning Subcommittee. This afternoon we have 3 items before the subcommittee, and we also have in attendance Councilor Haas and Councilor Correggio, who are both subcommittee members. The first matter before us is item C-13-14, and this is a petition from Joseph Prizio, 350 Squire Road, Revere, seeking permission to modify a non-conforming use from a fast food use to a truck rental use to enable the appellant to rent 10 U-Haul trucks at 350 Squire Road, Revere, Massachusetts. Please state your name and tell us about the proposal, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Subcommittee. My name is Attorney Lawrence Simeone, and I represent Joseph Prizio, the manager of 350 Squire Road, LLC. He sought a special permit to change a non-conforming use in accordance with 1740-020 Section B, as required by the Site Plan Review Committee in its pre-screening letter of June 18, 2013. 350 Squire Road, it consists of 10 parcels. It's 23,462 square feet. It's in the general business district. It has 246 feet of frontage. The existing use of the property is a self-service gasoline station in accordance with 1722-260. Because of the size of that particular land that's required for that station, it has been determined by the Site Plan Review Committee that it's a non-conforming use. Since that time, we have removed 2 accessory uses from the property. One is a Dunkin' Donuts restaurant and an all-alcohol license. The applicant seeks to replace those 2 accessory uses with a truck rental facility, U-Haul, approximately 10 vehicles. Noteworthy is the fact that I think this should have been done by right through the building inspector, but again, Site Plan Review has recommended it, and my client is following their recommendations. 350 has 16 off-street parking spaces. The building there is a small commercial single-story building with a large canopy. It's a self-service gas station. It's 950 square feet, requiring 3 off-street parking spaces. That leaves us with 13 spaces, 10 of which will be used by the U-Haul, and 3 for additional parking necessary over and above the required parking of 3 spaces. At this time, we continue the mobile gasoline station operation there, notwithstanding the fact that we operate now at 338 Squire Road. There are 4 employees that work that facility at 350. The operating hours are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The goal, as stated at the public hearing, is to sell this facility and or find an appropriate use for a ground lease. As part of the owners moving from a franchise holder to an independent gas operator, he was required to purchase this facility that was once held by him by leasehold. We presently now have purchased the facility from Global Oil, who purchased all the mobile stations, at least in this area, and certainly this one. We're now operating a mobile station at 338. We are currently operating this station just to keep it open and meet the financial obligations of the amount of money that my client expended to purchase this property. He hopes fervently, with the help of Otis and Ahern and other marketing agents, to again either ground lease this location or sell it outright. The problem we're having is the only people that are interested to date are gasoline operators. And we certainly don't want 2 gasoline stations there. And even if we wanted to put a gasoline station operator, they would have to buy the gas from us, which would make the whole thing useless. We have had some bites, but nothing has moved to fruition. This is something that we've thought about. We've asked you to consider it. It does replace 2 accessory uses that were at this facility and does allow my client additional revenue to maintain the property, meet his tax obligation and his finances, while he attempts to move it to a better venue.
Thank you, Attorney Simeone. I would like to also welcome Councilor Zambudo, Councilor Patch, Councilor Guanasso to the subcommittee meeting. Do any of the subcommittee members have any questions? Councilor Correggio.
Thank you. Larry, just one question. Besides the vehicles on the property, does it look like there'll be a future for some other use that would be there?
I have been working with Otis and Ahern for the last 3 months. I've laid out some different scenarios and gone through the zoning with them. We've had some interest from banks. We've had some interest from fast food restaurants, but none of those have developed to a point that I can report to you something positive.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry, I don't honestly believe that's the best use of the property, without question. You're talking about having seven vehicles up there and 3 other issues. I would like to really put a time limit on it before you guys can actually, I'd like to put a year limit on it. Now, I don't know if that's legally feasible or not, all right? We haven't checked out with our city solicitor. This way here, a year to date in the future, at that point in time, you will either have to reapply for a special permit, which you already have if we grant it. And I'm not really sure, but I don't think that's the best use of the property on Squire Road, to have a truck rental or leasing agency there. So that's my opinion, Mr. Chairman. I like to put a year stipulation on it for 1 year, and after 1 year, if the owner of the property hasn't had an opportunity to sell it, lease it, or whatever, to a more conducive business, I would say at that point we can address it. Thank you.
So noted.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor
Hold on
Hess.
1 second, Councilor Simeon, Councilor. Just so noted, I just think if we report this out, I think you'll have your opportunity to make that as a motion before the full city council, assuming we report it out at this meeting. Councilor.
Yeah, the law as it stands is that special permits run with the land, and that they're not assigned to one particular person or one particular use, and they usually don't have time frame requirements. To date, I've received no real negative on this, and although I think that is a suggestion, I would probably not at this time, unless the council completely wills it against my will, I would not recommend it to my client. Not that Mr. Prizio has been an upstanding guy, he's got $5 million invested in the property next door. I don't really think he's going to want the U-Haul around much longer, and I'm sure he doesn't want 350 around much longer, but I think to hold it to 1 year may just cause more problems than it sounds like. No disrespect to
Well,
Councilor
Mr. Chairman, but what happens, that gives them the incentive to move it faster. With the economy changing, it seems like there's an upturn in the economy. Squire Road,
Yeah.
with Market Basket coming in,
Yep.
I mean, it's bumper to bumper now, left and right, east and west on Squire Road, without question. I think that's a hindrance to see a truck rental as you enter into Squire Road from the west going east. That's my opinion, you know.
Yeah, and again, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilor Hess, I mean, in my legal opinion, this should have been granted as a right because it's an accessory use, and if you look at other things like car rental companies and so forth, they have the U-Hauls aside them. Even Brothers years ago at Patriots Parkway, on Patriots Parkway was allowed by right. Brothers never got a special permit.
How about the one down Bell Circle?
Right, another one. No special permit for that one. Should have been allowed as a matter of right. But we've come here because the Prizios are good business people, and they're not looking to ruffle any feathers.
There's no question about that.
And I think
Absolutely.
that if you asked them what their greatest concern would be, was they'd like to sell it as fast. They could sell it tomorrow. I think Mr. Prizio would be, doing a jig, as the Irish would say.
So you're saying, Mr. Chairman, what the learned attorney is saying, that there's been others in Revere that did not need.
Correct.
Why is that?
Because I think if you look at an accessory use is defined under the ordinances, any building or use means a building or use customarily incidental to and located on the same lot with a principal building or use, or an adjacent lot under the same ownership, which is not detrimental to the neighborhood. It's historically, there's a case called Harvard versus Maxant, where the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts basically said, if the accessory use doesn't dominate the principal use, it's a subordinate to the principal use, and the accessory use is concomitant, i.e. has a rational relationship to that use in the industry, okay, then it's allowed by right. Perfect example is airport parking and rental facilities. Has long been associated that airport parking and rental facilities have long been, for decades, have been established. Back in the day, we used to worry about airport parking, but airport parking is an accessory use to rental. That type of analysis is done.
I think what the counselor is suggesting is that the use here is in the realm where we might find this in court at some point if we're denied because of the, again, the case law that you suggested, as well as the possibility that a judge would see things differently than the city council if the city council were to deny it. I think that's the only significance of what Mr. Attorney Simeone is saying at this point. But, I mean, I'm hoping we'll get beyond that. Councilor Tatch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You got to excuse me. I'm not a little ill tonight. My voice is a little.
You just take your time.
A little gone. I just want to say I have only had one person call me that was in the negative of this, and I think that probably has been worked out.
I don't think so.
I know Mr. Prizio from working with him, that he does run a fine business, and I want to see him. I know the position where he's in now, where he's not, with the overhead that he's getting, has to pay for over in his old building, is just not taking care of the bill.
Oh, really?
So I have no problem with him doing this, and I just want to say I've always been in favor of commercial property, at least along that corridor and where our business districts are, because it does help our tax rate, and you know it will eventually help our tax rate. I just think this idea is I'm not really crazy about this idea with the U-Hauls, but I do understand the necessity of it, and I'm going to vote in favor of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. And before any of the city councilors offer a comment, I would ask if they don't have any further questions of Attorney Simeone, that if there are anyone else who would like to speak on this matter, that they come forward at this time.
The only thing, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to follow up with both Councilor Patch and
Well, just let me find out if there's anybody else going to talk. No one else has anything to say out there about this matter? You do? All right. As soon as Attorney Simeone is done speaking, you have an opportunity. All right?
I mean, at no point does my client want to go to court over this matter. We've been through a very long process in developing the store that I think everybody's pretty happy with. I just know that, it's really difficult for people to plan and survive, and he's having, I'm going to say that it would be great if he could get rid of, there'd be no greater incentive than the monthly bill he pays there while he's serving gas to people, that he's making less money on the gas that he's serving through that store than he is on the other store. Because you make more money as an independent at $3.38 than you do as a franchise at $3.50. So.
Thank you. State your name and your address, please.
Gentlemen, Rob DiMattia, Rumney Road. I'm opposing this proposal because, frankly, that neighborhood has suffered enough with this proponent's new gas station. A gas station that many believe this council should never have approved. And now, to add insult to injury, he wants to locate a U-Haul business at the old station, and I say no. Let him take the loss until he sells the property. Like I believe Councilor has pointed out, he'll be less motivated to sell it if you grant him this use. And besides, it's a loss he can certainly afford considering the volume of business his new station is generating, and all at the detriment of that neighborhood. And I would suggest to him, however, if he likes U-Haul so much, that he locate a U-Haul business in Boxford on Great Pond Drive where his lawyer lives. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments from the council, let me just say a couple of things. First of all, I agree with Councilor Haas that this is not going to make the traffic situation any better on Squire Road. On the other hand, I don't really think it's going to make it significantly worse, given the fact that it is limited to 10 U-Haul trucks. Presumably, they won't all be rented for a couple of hours at a time, coming and going. So I would imagine that 10 U-Haul trucks probably will mean about 25, 30, or 40, perhaps weekly exits and entries into the property. And I appreciate the fact that that the gentleman has developed a piece of property which I think by all accounts has a better use than the prior use. So I would be in favor of this, and I would ask the subcommittee to report it out favorably, with the note that Councilor Haas is suggesting and is going to move the measure, that the measure be allowed on a temporary basis of 1 year. I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Correggio?
Yes.
So moved. All in favor? All opposed? This will be reported out favorably to the full City Council at the 6 o'clock City Council meeting, be taken up relatively early in that meeting. That concludes the hearing on that matter. Second matter before us is C-13-15, Clear Channel Outdoor, 89 Maple Street, Stoneham, Mass., seeking permission from the Revere City Council to modify an existing billboard to include 2 digital displays on Lot 2A at 4 Furlong Drive, Revere, Mass. If the parties that are proposing this are here, I'd like to hear from them. State your name and your address, please.
Good evening, council member, members of the council. My name is John Pellrine. I'm the Vice President of Real Estate and Operations for Clear Channel Outdoor. We are seeking a modification to digital for Lot A, 4 Furlong Drive. I believe there's a financial package also on the table to the City of Revere of $20,000 annually, that's per year, and 10 hours of public service announcements on a monthly basis. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Oh, okay.
Councilor Correggio, any questions on this matter? Councilor Haas? Do any other councilors? Councilor Zambudo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard you mention part of the financial package. Can you state it again? What is it?
It's $20,000 per year to the city for 25 years and 10 hours a month in public service messages. And then I also think there's a check for the Revere Beach Parade.
For the Sandcastles event yearly.
Correct.
For $5,000 a year?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Somehow that got lost. I was afraid it wasn't still in. What's that? No, it wasn't going to get lost. It wasn't going to get by me. It was my suggestion. So when I suggest something, it usually doesn't get lost. You know that by now. Anyways, so that's $10,000 per side of the billboard, because it's one billboard, right? Two sides?
Yes, one side, one monopole with 2 faces on it.
Right. It's got 2 faces, but it's really just the one billboard that will be there for 25 years, whether or not this is granted.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ganasso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak, although I'm not a member of your zoning subcommittee. I took the opportunity this afternoon to drive Furlong Drive. And much to my dismay, I have never seen a bigger dump in my whole life. There's FedEx trucks there being repaired. There's a repair shop there with cars and limos and half piece over here, debris on the other side. This is absolutely an insult to all of us to allow this type of activity to stay there, because Furlong Drive is the opening up of going to all that new market area at Suffolk Downs. That's the driveway through to Suffolk Downs and all those shops, Target and Stop and Shop and all those other shopping areas. Anybody coming into our community, especially our neighbors from East Boston who shop at that area, have to say, wow, we live in a palace compared to that dump in Revere. That thing is an eyesore. And to even worry about this display, this billboard would glorify and make it a little prettier, I think. I mean, I just was so taken back by what I saw there today that it absolutely is an eyesore, and I think that we as a council have to get together and do something with that. And I don't even know why you want to brighten up that area and make your billboard illuminated, because that's a very, very trashy, dumpy looking area, and I'm so dissatisfied with what I see there. I just couldn't believe it when I went by it. I said, your site was an afterthought after I got through getting sick and seeing all the debris I saw. It was just a mess, and I don't know how clearer to state that. I think that's as clear as I can make it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ganasso. Councilor Penta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as far as the billboard goes, I believe it's been there probably about 25 years now, correct?
Yes, I believe it's been there 28 years.
Yeah, I think the family that owned it actually lived in the immaculate area. They still own the property. You lease it off them.
Yes, we do, sir. We don't own the property outright. We lease the billboard.
And just to get back to the Ward 3 Council's comments on Furlong Drive, I'm surprised it's the first time he's been by there. But those businesses have been there for probably 40 or 50 years. And if you've seen it 10 or 15 years ago, you'd be surprised how much it cleaned up since then. But I mean, FedEx just went in there. It's a new company that went in there. If they're on Furlong Drive, there's something wrong, because they're leasing property not off of Furlong Drive.
They're all trucks that need repair.
But inspection service maybe should be sent down there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hess.
I have one question to you, sir. Does the Commonwealth of Mass outdoor advertising limit the number of these type billboards in a city?
Yes, that's a great question. Back in December of 2012, the state allowed digital, and they've got to be this 1,000-foot spacing. So you're not going to see these in every one that's currently up. There's 1,000-foot spacing per location.
Per location.
Correct. So right now, this is the only one that Clear Channel, that is looking to modify in the city of Revere.
How many boards do you have in Revere?
I'd have to get back to you with that total, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hess. If no other councilors, I'd like to welcome Councilor Penta and Councilor Novoselsky to the chamber as well. If there are no other questions of this gentleman, I'd ask if there is anybody else in the audience who would like to speak on this matter, and please approach the podium. State your name and address as usual. Thank you, sir.
My name is Ron Champeau. I live on Stevens Street in Revere, and I am a member of the Revere Beautification Committee.
And why don't you introduce the rest of the committee?
Okay. We have Dr. Bibi Wunderlich, Carol Haney, and Elena Vieira, the president of the Revere Beautification Committee. I will be speaking for the group. At the last City Council meeting, we spoke against allowing this conversion to digital billboards, and we cited an article that appeared on June 5th of this year in the Boston Globe. The title of the article was, "Ire Rises Over the State Plan for Digital Billboards." You want to hold on to that? In the article, it stated that the state would receive from Clear Channel 25% of gross revenues, gross advertising revenues, or $90,000 per year, whichever is higher for these new digital billboards. After informing the council of this fact, this article, the information the council still didn't seem to favor, still seemed to favor Clear Channel's offer. Subsequently, we were able to acquire from the state the aforementioned agreement. The agreement calls for Clear Channel to pay the state, in parts of the agreement, calls for Clear Channel to pay the state $50,000 per face. In this case, 2 faces, $100,000. $100,000, plus a 2.5% increase every year for a digital billboard that is not adjacent to an interstate or 25% of the gross revenues. One can easily see that the proposal that Clear Channel has made to the city of Revere dwarfs in financial remuneration compared to the agreement with the state. Next, we want to bring to your attention an article titled "Digital Billboards Draw Fire" that appeared in the Boston Globe on August 15th of this year. The article addresses the many concerns that cities in the greater Boston area have with the conversion to digital billboards, and also some good things about digital billboards. I believe for our discussion today, the most salient points in this article concern the city of Medford's handling of the digital billboard issue. To note, the city of Medford has agreed to allow 2 digital billboards over the last few years. Mayor McGlynn of Medford was quoted in the article as saying, "This agreement with the billboard companies has pumped $2 million into city coffers in recent years." $2 million. The mayor continued to state that Medford has set limits to the number of signs. Only 2 digital billboards are permitted within the city limits of Medford. He again continued by saying that the agreement also required the companies to take down unsightly non-electronic billboards. Take down billboards. Finally, if the city of Medford can accomplish these points in their agreement, namely 1, a much greater financial package, removal of unsightly non-electric billboards in the city of Medford, setting a limit to the number of digital billboards, and we believe in the city of Revere that the limit should be no more than 3 billboards or 6 faces. 6 faces. Why can't we in the city of Revere, why cannot this council or this administration negotiate with the billboard companies so that we can achieve something that the city of Medford has? What is it about the city that we can't do something like that? I don't understand this. And many, many people I've spoken to in the city do not understand why we can't get similar opportunities as other cities. And that's our point. We're not saying to noting where this billboard is, as you had mentioned, Councilor Guanasso, we're not saying not to negotiate. We're saying negotiate, but negotiate so that we can acquire what the city of Medford achieved. That's all we have to say.
I thank you, and I thank the Beautification Committee. Your points are certainly well taken. I would remind you that the purpose of this meeting is to get this information together. That's what we're doing. We haven't done anything yet. Right. I would prefer not to look at it as negative, but look at it as a positive. Yeah. Not why we can't, certainly we can't. So I would suggest that this is not a done deal by any means, and any suggestions to that I think would be contrary to the process.
Right. And that's why we're here. We're here just basically, as we said in the first meeting, to give knowledge so that people could acquire knowledge of what's out there. And there are other cities, my understanding, that have negotiated. So let's get those contracts. Let's find out what they were able to acquire. That's all we're saying.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Would anybody else like to speak on this matter? If so, please step forward. Again, name and address, please.
Gentlemen, Rob Damati, Rumney Road. We may not know the exact amount, but I think we could all agree that Clear Channel is the largest operator of billboards in the city. At least that's the name tag that I see on most of the billboards that I drive by. And it was only a year and a half ago when we were confronted with a proposed new billboard in an area of the city which never had one. The community fought that billboard, and the rallying cry that this council heard repeatedly was, "We don't want any more billboards." In fact, the response went even further. "We want fewer billboards, not more." This council voted down that proposal, rightly, and it was Councilor Haas who pointed out that Revere has more billboards than many surrounding communities. Now we have the perfect opportunity, the best chance in decades, to not only eliminate some of them, but to significantly increase the amount of revenue the city receives from the billboards that remain. However, I'm extremely worried that this council is going to blow this opportunity. As you know, Clear Channel has an offer on the table which would pay the city $20,000 per billboard for 25 years. This is the same offer that another billboard operator, Van Wagner, provided to the city, and this council accepted only a few months ago. However, thanks to the efforts of the Revere Beautification Committee, a volunteer organization, and in particular member Ron Champo, we now know that the Van Wagner offer that this council accepted was poorly negotiated and done in haste. Ron brought to the attention of this council a contract that the state negotiated last year with Clear Channel that mandates the state receives 25% of advertising revenue, or $90,000 per year per billboard, whichever is higher. In fact, Ron mentioned it's actually $100,000, right? If I'm not mistaken? Or $50,000 per side. And in fact, according to that article from the Boston Globe dated June 5th, there are other agencies in the country that have negotiated contracts that give the government an even larger cut. Now finding out Medford, one of them, our neighbors next door. The difference is valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars and over 25 years could reach into the millions. Yet, after being made aware of this during the last meeting with Clear Channel, one counselor asked whether they would be willing to, quote, throw in a little bone by offering to donate $5,000 to the annual Sandcastle event. With all due respect, that's no way to negotiate. At this point, I would strongly advise the council to consider hiring an experienced consultant in this area to assist us in the negotiation. I would request that Mayor Rizzo or his Economic Development Director, John Festa, take a leadership role by contacting the City of Medford or the State Department of Transportation to inquire whether they negotiated the deal themselves or consulted with an outside party. We should evaluate every billboard that Clear Channel operates in the city by proximity to residences to determine which ones should be targeted for elimination. And for every billboard Clear Channel proposes for digital conversion, we should require a certain number of billboards be removed. And under no circumstances should we enter into an agreement lasting longer than 10 years. We can consider options for renewal, but considering this is an uncharted territory for most municipalities, it would be legislative malpractice for this temporary board to tie the hands of future councils or administrations, which would prevent them from freely renegotiating depending on the economic circumstances at the time. Let's remember, there is a reason that Clear Channel came to the city hat in hand. They know we're holding all the cards. They also know that digital billboards are extraordinarily profitable because of the sheer number of ads that can be projected at any given time, and without the need of a crew to constantly replace the signage every time a new ad appears, after the capital cost of conversion, they're no doubt the most efficient to maintain. Opportunities like this don't come around very often, and with so much at stake, it is absolutely critical that this decision not be rushed. In closing, I don't want to be unfairly critical because I know and respect some of you. But shame on the City Council for not doing its due diligence when it came to that agreement with Van Wagner. There are 11 members, and not one of you was willing to research their offer to determine whether we were getting a good deal. You just accepted what they offered, and it took the efforts of a concerned citizen volunteering his time to educate you. Well, here's your opportunity to make up for that mistake. Hopefully, you won't blow this one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other councils have any comments? Anything else? Council Correggio.
Yes, I'll be very brief. I'm not a big favor of billboards, but I think the time has really come that we should revisit the billboard ordinance or the number of billboards. As far as billboards electronically, maybe we can negotiate that certain billboards they want to have electronically, but take certain ones down and use that. I think this is an opportunity to be able to do that, and especially now with new development coming into the city. We want to beautify the city the best we can, And I'd be willing to work with the billboard company to see if they could take some down, negotiate something that they want and we want, and maybe work as suggested with the city of Medford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Correggio. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have 5 points I'd like to bring out. Number one, we already voted for, passed for 4 billboards. As far as I'm concerned, they're cleaning up the city, not messing the city. We'd be stuck with them one way or the other if we said no. In the same situation here. What this would do, it would stop paper covers, canvas covers, and allow them to rip. And that's why we put in the city ordinance several years ago that I believe Councilor Zambuto put in to force the billboard companies to clean up their act within, say, 30 days that we got a notice of a messy billboard, paper hanging, etc. So, I think this is more enhancing the neighborhood than it is the city, than it is to hurt it. Are you against billboards? That's your right, in general. But here we have something that we're upgrading, and we are cleaning up the area. Like I said, we've already given 4 billboards approval. And as far as the payment's concerned, these billboards that are given out by the state are on state property, not city property. We can't negotiate for private property. And that's what we're doing here. These folks are offering to us to donate to the city for a cause. And we're going to use that cause for different things. They're offering time to give public announcements, which, of course, the other party did also. I think that helps when we have snow emergency bans. We can throw that up on the board, that there's a snow emergency ban going on. They have offered it to us. And that's about it, Mr. President. At this point, if we want to negotiate some billboards to be taken down and they agree to it, that's up to the council to do that. That's where the negotiation comes in. Are some of them messy and in bad places? Absolutely. Have no objection. Are people going to lose money by it? They are, absolutely. As far as income, because they're on private property. So those are my points, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambuto.
Thank you for the latitude, Mr. Chairman. I don't normally respond to citizens, but to suggest that nobody did any research on other cities and towns was absolutely false. There are other cities and towns that got the same exact deal that Van Wagner offered the city, and the mayor accepted, and subsequently the city council accepted. I dare say that most of the billboards in Medford are on highway property, are on state property, not city property. I don't know the specific deal Mr. Champeau brought up, but I appreciate all the work he does and all the work he does for the city. We disagree on this issue. We don't disagree on many, because the Beautification Committee does wonderful work for the city, and we want them to continue. So I don't want to make any enemies with my friends over here. However, I do stand by this agreement, and I guess what are we suggesting here? We go back to Van Wagner and renegotiate the special permit deal we made with them so that we can make a higher deal here, or is there favoritism for one and not the other? I think this is a reasonable deal for what's offered, 2 sides of a billboard, $10,000 per side per year, and the $5,000 bone that someone threw in at my suggestion. I think $5,000 to the Sandcastle event is a little bit more than a bone, and I'm glad we can get it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambuto. Councilor Rigo. And welcome, Councilor Rigo. Councilor Rigo is a member of the subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your leniency with me being late to tonight's meeting. Billboards. They are something that I have said before I'm not crazy about. We, earlier this year, kind of rushed to approve a special permit, And I don't know if we made the best deal that we could have with all the information that we've gotten and the amount of money that other communities have gotten. It makes our package, mitigation package, look a little less than desirable. So, I'm hesitant on this issue. I do think aesthetically that the digital billboards are an improvement, but there are still a lot of billboards out in the city that should have never gone up in the first place. And if we can get those taken down and leverage our position in giving these special permits, I think we would be the better city for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rigo. My intent at this point is in a moment is to entertain a motion to leave this in committee. I think there's enough new information here at this point that we really do have to vet this certainly considerably more than we have at this point. A couple of points I would like to make. First of all, I think in as much as this is more than just an issue for two billboards on Furlong Drive, it certainly invites the question of how we're going to deal with these issues as they come up, how often they may come up given the restrictions that the state is putting on these things, and whether or not it gives us an opportunity to reassess our billboard situation. As has been stated here today, and Councilor Hass astounded us several months ago when he told us how many billboards are in the city, and I think it's certainly a laudable goal while I agree with Councilor Rigo, they are less intrusive, I think, and less ugly, so to speak, for lack of a better word, than some of the other paper billboards that we have. At the same time, I think billboards do not enhance the city in any way, shape, or form. And it seems to me that I would suggest at this point that the administration take a really serious look into this thing and look into the agreements that have been made by other cities and towns and look a little more closely at the statute and what the state has done before we act on this. And hopefully the administration, and I really do think the administration needs to take the bull by the horns here, is to come up with some sort of reasonable policy, both as regards the electronic billboards, but as regards billboards throughout the city. So given all of that, I believe I would entertain a motion at this point to keep this in committee while we, Councilor Hass?
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but also along the same subject. We have one that's in litigation right now off Squire Road. I think we should move forward with my original thought as far as eliminating all future billboards in the city and move ahead with that public hearing, because this thing could be held up in court for many, many moons and people could apply.
We've already had a public hearing on this. The next thing we do is vote, but I don't think it's time to vote until we have more information. And I honestly, I think it needs to be held in the subcommittee until more information is available, and hopefully the administration, as I suggest, will take the opportunity to come up with some sort of a report for us on what makes sense to do citywide, what we're going to do going forward. If we've made mistakes with a prior special permit, shame on us, but it's even a greater mistake to continue to make the same mistake with other people who are promoting these billboards. Anybody can make a mistake. It's the question is, do you do something about it? And it seems to me that at this point we need to just hold off a second before we start moving forward with something that we really don't have a handle on.
Like I honestly believe, as was mentioned by I think Ronnie or some other speaker, Medford limited them to, 3 in the community? I think those are the things we have to get involved with at the present time, along with this issue, because this issue here is confronting us today. And I think to leave it in committee, we have to meet without question with the mayor as his representative to move forward. And I think Mike McGlynn has a great opportunity. He may have most of his billboards on the 93, etc., but again, that's a start for us. I mean, everyone in the city council voted on that to eliminate future billboards, and I think we have to move in that.
Yes, sir.
Just a point, and I don't disagree with Councilor Hass. The only thing I say on billboards and I'll say it again. Every billboard should be taken on its own merit. I mean, you got one out in the boondocks. I mean, it's different. No, there's not a resident there that can see it. Should it be 5 billboards in Revere? Maybe there should be. I don't know how many there have been. I mean, they've been there from the past. We have to deal with it. Since I've been on the council, it's probably less. Even though we voted for a couple, there's less than one since I've been on the council. So, I mean, it's not an increase. We're talking apples and oranges here. We're talking about a billboard that's not going away if we vote against the digital. It seems like everybody is in favor of the digital. Is better looking. That's up for argument also. And my thing is, depending on what area it is, how isolated it is, every one of these should be on merits on its own. And I think your suggestion to keep it in committee should stay there, only to break the criteria down of what zones, how far from houses, how far from commercial, state roads, whatever. I mean, there's a lot to put in this. Can we eliminate the billboards? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. Unless, maybe we can charge more and taxes and whatever. But a lot of these are privately owned in this city, unfortunately. They're owned by landowners that, lived here for generations and generations, and they lease them to these companies. But I think your suggestion of keeping it in committee, I'm all in favor. I'll make a motion to keep it in committee and discuss this further and have someone from the mayor's office be at the next meeting.
Thank you, Council Pence. Council Powers is here also this evening. I believe he has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll admit I did vote for the other billboards, and I voted for them because they were existing billboards and they were in areas that were not intrusive, in my opinion, to the neighborhoods. Van Wagner has very few billboards in the city, so there wasn't really anything to negotiate with as far as they were concerned, removing billboards. Before I'll support any future illuminated billboards, they have to meet 3 criteria. First of all, they have to be in areas that are not intrusive to the neighborhood. Number 2, there has to be a reasonable amount of mitigation funds coming from those billboards as they're put up. They have to be existing billboards. But more importantly, there has to be some mitigation where some of these smaller billboards, if they're owned by a company, will be taken down. And I think that should be for the administration to negotiate with the billboard company, make a proposal to the city council that's fair and equitable. But again, very importantly, getting some of these other billboards down, because I agree. I believe we have 70 billboards in the city now. 86, okay, I'm wrong. But even 86 billboards. And most of those billboards were originally Donnelly billboards, and now they're Clear Channel billboards. And I think that, it's going to be very important. We have an opportunity here to get some of these billboards down by negotiating for the illuminated billboards. And I will be looking at this very carefully, and I can tell you now, I will not be supporting any of these illuminated billboards unless there's mitigation that I feel is reasonable and beneficial to the citizens of this city. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council Powers. That having been said, and as it's getting late at this point, we're 10 minutes into the Ways and Means, and we still have one other item to come up. This will remain in subcommittee until the next regular subcommittee meeting, and pending the involvement of the administration and coming up with some clear direction for us to embark when considering further changes to our billboard permits. Thank you. The last matter on the agenda is CZ-13-03. This is an ordinance regulating medical marijuana and substance abuse treatment centers. I was advised this week that the proposal has changed at this point. It was originally recommended that the ordinance permit these treatment centers as defined by a statute in the LI district of Revere, and now that the administration, or at least the Department of Planning and Community Development, is recommending that they be put into the TED district, the TED district. And I know we don't have anybody here tonight from the planning and community development, and I would, I think, move to table this thing for one more meeting. We do have some time on it. I'd like an explanation of why we're doing what we're now not doing, and I'd also request that the city clerk speak to the city solicitor about whether this needs to be re-advertised in as much as it has changed completely from what was proposed before the public hearing. So we'll keep this in the subcommittee pending that information and for the next subcommittee meeting. That concludes the zoning subcommittee meeting this evening. I apologize to Chairman Arrigo on the Ways and Means subcommittee for taking up some of his time. And that hearing will be held, I'm sure, in a couple of minutes. Thank you.